Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Cybersecure, My Business in a Viral World. My name is Sandra Vidrio, and on behalf of the Fresno Area Hispanic Foundation, we thank you for joining us today. Today, we are partnering with Asian Inc. as well as Fresno Native American and Business Development Center to provide you with a great presentation on the importance of cybersecurity and how you as a business owner can learn some tools on how to protect your business. Before we get started, I would like to share with you that we are going to be using some new Zoom features that you can see on your screen. I'm excited to share that today's webinar will have a live interpretation from English to Chinese, Mandarin, and English to Spanish. To enable the feature, simply select Interpretation as it's shown on your screen. And from there, you will select the preferred language. If you are using a mobile device, please select More, and then language interpretation and select your preferred language. Make sure to mute the original audio and select done when completed. Estoy contenta de anunciar que nuestro seminario web de hoy tiene la opción de traducción en vivo de inglés a español. Para acceder a esta herramienta, por favor de seleccionar la opción de interpretación o more en su pantalla y después hacer clic en la opción de español. Asegúrese de silenciar el audio original. During the presentation, please submit your questions or comments using the chat feature tool that is shown on your screen. This is our agenda for today. And before getting started, I would like to invite David Mendoza, who is Project Director at Fresno Native American and Business Development Center. David, welcome, and thank you so much for the opportunity to collaborate with the organization.
Well, thank you, Sandra. Appreciate it very much. Good morning, and welcome to our Cybersecurity, Secure Your Business webinar. Thank you for joining us. I am David Mendoza, the Project Director for the Fresno Native American and Business Development Center. And just for background information, we are a group of national business centers funded by the U.S. Department of Commerce, Minority Business Development Agency to support minority and Native American owned businesses. Our business center is operated by Asian Inc., a nonprofit organization based in San Francisco with over 48 years of community development service throughout California. And for those who are not familiar with our organization and what we do, we provide business development services to minority business enterprises in the form of certifications, B2B workshops, matchmaking small businesses to better bid on contracts, actual procurement opportunities, and we provide loan packaging. And another good part of it is most of our services are provided to our clients at no charge. This morning, we will present to you information on cybercrime and how to best avoid internet-based crime. So, thank you for joining us. Let's get started. And with that, I welcome Sandra to introduce our first speaker.
Thank you so much, David. And before introducing our first speaker, who is Adam, I just really quickly just want to share about our organization as well. We are an organization here in the Central Valley with the mission to promote education and self-sufficiency by fostering entrepreneurship. And at this time, our team is providing the following core programs remotely to our community: our virtual technical assistance, weekly webinars, and microloan program. In addition, we have our newest program, Womanpreneur, that launched in the month of May, and it is an 8-session program designed to help women entrepreneurs grow their business using online marketing tools and also develop a strategic marketing plan. And to learn more about these programs, you can simply call us at 559-222-8705 or visit our website to sign up for our weekly webinars. And I also want to share that at the moment we have collaborating with the City of Fresno and the County of Fresno as well in regards to grant opportunities that are available to businesses that might be eligible to qualify. And you can simply give us a phone call at 222-8705 to receive more information. And it looks like our first speaker, Adam, is going to be joining us shortly here. So perhaps we can start with Majian. I don't know if you would like to introduce David.
Yes, thank you very much. Mei Jing is the founder and co-owner of CMIT Solutions out of Silicon Valley, and it is a full-service IT managed service provider specializing in managing IT infrastructure, cybersecurity, disaster recovery, and cloud solutions. Mei Jing Welke has a computer science degree and extensive technology and software engineering experience, and over 20 years working with over Fortune 500 corporations such as IBM, Sun, Cisco, NCR, MX, and Good. Prior to starting CMAT Solutions in Silicon Valley with her husband, Todd Welke. She has built technology use in our day-to-day lives all the way to mission critical environments. Mei Jing has been serving on the board of directors for the Industry Council for Small Businesses Development and Chief Information Officer since 1914. She has also helped us start off our presentations last year. And this year we have more information to keep you in tune with what's going on. So with that, I welcome Mei Jing to our webinar.
Thank you, David. And let me go ahead and share my screen. I wanted to thank you all to all the hosts and the sponsor for this event. And I thank you for inviting me back to be one of the panelists here. So again, my name is Mei Jing Welke, and my office is here located in San Jose. And we've been in business for over 10 years, supporting and serving local businesses and communities and nonprofit organizations. So I'm going to go through a few slides just to kind of share with you what's going on, the landscape of cyber threats, and also what you can do to secure yourself. So, now, in addition to just cybersecurity, we have a lot more to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. As before COVID-19, everybody goes to the office, right? There's less than 5% of the workforce to work remotely. And a lot of companies in the past didn't even allow remote workers. But the pandemic definitely changed that, and everybody's working from home. The numbers, I would suspect it's probably like 80% now. Wow. Now, what does that mean when when your employees working from home? That means that cybersecurity has to go beyond just your office network now, because you're using your home network, and you still have to protect your company's data. You have to protect your own base data and all of that. So I'm going to focus on this presentation to talk about how you can secure and what are the threats looking like. They come in just like a tsunami storm, and in real life, we're actually dealing with a lot more than just that, right? The fire, the pandemic, and everything else. But cyber threats come in all forms. It comes into your network, your email, your computers, and even through your employees if they're not trained. So and small business, small business is not too small anymore for the cybercrime people. And we're great targets for them, because we, as small business, don't think of that it will happen to us, that our data is not valuable. But when we work for a government, large organization, big enterprise, their data is what we have to protect as well, right? Not just ours. And a lot of small business don't even think that it's something that worth investing or spend a lot of their budget on. So that's what makes small business prime targets for these hackers out there. Here's some statistics that I pulled together that are pretty recent, and I'm not going to read through it, but as you can see, a lot of attacks. If you just go out there and Google on small business data breaches, cyber attacks, you'll get a lot of this information out there. So it's no longer something that we can ignore. It's an area that we have to invest and focus on, and I'm very passionate about supporting small businesses because this needs a lot more education and protection and awareness. This is interesting. This hits home a lot more because how many of us have account on eBite, right? At some point in our life, we have a login account at eBite house. If you recently do construction remodeling, you probably have account at house. You order food through Instacart. You order office supplies through Staples. If you have login account in any of these places, go and change your password right away. Because they are not, they've been data breaches, hacked happen at these places. A small nonprofit with 52 people, as you can see on the slide, recently got hacked through an employee's home Wi-Fi. And so that's what I'm here to talk about, is that be very careful when you're working from home. So they almost lost $7.5 million out of their endowment account. Small medical imaging services had to settle, and see the cost of it is huge for small businesses. And usually when small businesses get attacked or get data breaches, a lot of them will, over 60% will close their door within 6 months. And this website is where a company that get data breaches have to go and report. It shows 259 cases, and these are only people that report. There are a lot more that do not report to this to the state of California. So I won't go into detail on this slide, but this just show you all the different ways that you can get attacked. And I'm sure you've heard some of the terms here: fake email from your CEO, business owner; ransomware, where they encrypt your files and then ask for Bitcoin in exchange and payout. Social engineering is more around your employees and you when you worked, and how they can get in through that. Weak networking, you don't have a good networking security. Even smartphones now, when you do smartphone on your for business. So there's all this way that they can come in and attack. So in the next few slides, I'm just going to focus on a few things that you can do to kind of help yourself and protect yourself. It's by no means the only things you can do, but for this particular presentation, I'm just going to go through a few things. When you look at email, and this come in as the phishing email, before you click on anything, make sure you kind of hover your mouse, your cursor over to where the email, that sender email, and look at the full path. It could be somebody like David Mendoza, for example, an email from him asking for something. But if you hover over, you may see the full path is actually not David. It could be somebody else pretending to be David. So make sure before you click on anything, you do that first. Same thing as a click. A lot of times they say, oh, go to this website and look at more information. So look at the full link before you actually go and click on that. So some example here to show how you can get attacked through this kind of suspicious email. Smartphones, tablet, make sure you have passcode on all your tablets and smartphone. Make sure you connect. When you go to Starbucks, don't just connect to any open Wi-Fi. When you're in the airport, don't just connect to any Wi-Fi. Make sure you're using secure Wi-Fi with password, or just use your phone data line with your phone company, your wireless phone company. Turn off Bluetooth if you're not using the Bluetooth headset or anything that that could be connecting to it. And also one thing is that a lot of us are now doing banking on our phone, apps that require credit card and stuff. Make sure you log out and not just close the window, really log out of the app. Make sure you do that. Okay, so, and laptops, the reason I point out laptops instead of PCs because this is more mobile, so there's a chance of it getting lost more often. So if you are working, especially with government contracts, federal, county, make sure you have those laptops encrypted. And then there's, of course, you can turn on the firewall to protect it even further. Here's a lot of things, but they are pretty straightforward on a lot of it. I already said how to protect and working securely from home, your Wi-Fi, your router at home. Make sure you have it. Check on it. It's secure. You know, don't share your work computer with kids that play game on it. Don't save password on browser if that is a source of where you can easily get hacked. Let's see, make sure your laptop or PC has the latest updates when it comes to patches. Okay, so if you, I can definitely send this out as a little cheat sheet. If anybody would like more information, I can follow up with Sandra and I can provide. So what can you do right now? I mean, you know I share a lot of information, a lot of details, but really quick things you can do right away is make sure your password is a strong password, 10 characters or more, with mix, you know, upper, lowercase, different characters. Any place that allow you to do two-factor authentication, you should do it, where they either text you back a code or where you have to use one of those authentication apps to give you the code, and then you log in through that. Again, I've said this many times, Wi-Fi is a source, so make sure you're using the secure Wi-Fi when you're working. Upgrade your PC. Windows 7 is a target, a big target. So make sure you upgrade it to Windows 10 or above. And as I mentioned before, if you have an account on any of these sites, go and change them right away. Here I wanted to share, I've talked a lot about what you need to do to secure. This is a workshop provided by a staff from FBI officer. A lot of the same thing I said before, make sure that you protect and clean up, maintain, patch properly your laptop password management. So these are all the things that they also provide as a guidance to small businesses. And if you do have a contract with the government, this is now a requirement, even though you are holding on to non-classified information, but they are controlled because they are not public. Any email, drawing, spec that they give you, you have to protect them. So there's a whole requirement on that you need to make sure that you comply with, because hackers love stealing data, especially if it's government. So finally, a few more slides and I should be done. Cybersecurity, IT security is a process. It's not something you just do one time and say, let me hire somebody to come in and do this and then it's done. It's a process. It takes, assessment, implementing, monitoring, ongoing, early detection, respond to it, and also training your staff as well. So let me just share 2-3 slides on what we do at CMIT Solutions. As a very small, at a very high level, we take care of the details so you can focus on your business. And our tagline that I like to share is that we worry about IT so you don't have to. We are basically the IT department for small, medium businesses. We are also your virtual CIO, CTO, if you need it, if you don't have one, but everything completely managed IT. We work with you on getting you to the basic level of cybersecurity framework, and then it can help you get to a level of certification in your field that require compliance. I like to share our hamburger strategy, security strategy, where it's multi-layered. There's so many things you have to put in place. It's not just one thing. So that's what this hamburger graphic is trying to show. And that's it for me, Machen Walke, and my company is a certified small business, woman-owned, minority-owned by a number of organizations out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Machen, for this wonderful presentation. And I like the different tips that were shared, right? Something that business owners can go meet with their team and talk about, okay, what are the security measures that we're currently implementing? And, you know, based on the suggestions that were shared, how can we start making these changes? And it's, you know, simple as changing your passwords, right? That's one of the very first steps, and using a secure password with the special features, capital letters. And so at this time, I want to encourage our participants to please submit your questions using the chat box feature. We have some really great experts in this subject matter, and so we want you to use this opportunity to answer any questions. And after all the three presenters, we will be having a live Q&A. So you can submit your questions now, or we can answer them at the end. So I do want to encourage that. And if you're accessing through Facebook, you can also post your questions there, and we will be checking periodically. So with that, I would like to, it seems like there's no questions at the moment. So, okay.
There's some chat in for Meijing on a couple of questions. So once you give her an opportunity to read her chat regarding Norton's and also comparison on viruses. Meijing, do you see that in your chat box?
I'll go ahead and, do you want me to answer into the chat?
No, just maybe mention the question and then answer it.
All right, so how effective are software programs like Norton? So Norton is one of many antivirus out there. There's always better ones coming up, and there's a whole numbers of them. Like I said, that's one thing, like my hamburger graphics slides. There's so many things you have to do in addition to just antivirus. Removing a virus, cleaning up computer, the differences between Office Depot and CMIT solution. You go to a lot of this place, you do it one time. With us, with ongoing monitoring to make sure that your antivirus is actually scanning, it's running on your computers 24/7. It's scanning against the right database, because if it's scanning and not updating the right database, then it's useless scan. So there's a lot of things, and that's just one thing, but we are more of a proactive managed services where we proactively monitor and do maintenance.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Is there any more? Okay.
Yeah, any more questions? Okay, well, we will proceed with the second speaker. And like I mentioned, you know, all of our three panelists will be doing a live Q&A after the presentation. And I would now like to welcome Adam. Adam Septa is a cybersecurity analyst and speaker, tracking down and analyzing virus and malicious behavior since his teenage years. After supporting clients for 18 plus years and completing hundreds of projects from startups to Fortune 500 companies, Adam is dedicating his time to building best practices to the low-hanging fruit, small businesses, to save our nation and internet by cutting cyber criminals' income stream and take them out of business. He's also been a system engineer, ranging from the design and support of lot devices all the way to massive distributed computing stacks of servers for big data and machine learning processing and their databases. A system integrator, a contributor to the Wikipedia Online Encyclopedia, and a member of the Stop, Think, Connect Security Awareness Campaign led by the Phishing Working Groups, APWG, and National Cybersecurity Alliance, NCSA. Adam, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us for today's presentation, and the floor is all yours. Thank you. And like mentioned, please use the chat box feature to submit your questions. So thank you, Adam. I think we're having
Adam?
your audio might be having a little trouble with your audio.
Adam?
Okay, there we go. We are unmuted.
Perfect.
Thank you for that introduction, Sandra.
Yeah.
So you heard about me a little bit. Thanks for the little background. Yes, I'm a cybersecurity analyst with Cybercrime Experts, and I'm here to see what we can share to hopefully help you guys out. Go next slide. So we usually hear about natural disasters, wind, fire, floods. The delete button is a really common, unfortunate that businesses face, whether it was by mistake, by employees, or by a deliberate actor, like hackers, for example. So what you'd like to see to have is being pretty much planned for what happens when you in a disaster, you lose a lot of data. The survival of a business is whether you're prepared or not. If you're prepared, you can operate your business. If you're not prepared, you won't. And unfortunately now with COVID-19 was an example of a disaster where businesses were working from home, and a lot of businesses were not prepared for such an incident. So they were kind of struggling into getting everything together. If you had a disaster recovery plan, you wouldn't go into that struggle. However, the struggle is still basics because you still had your offices physically, you still had your data, you still had your systems. However, if you had a real disaster where all of your data, all your servers were locked out, that's where you would be in a bad situation where you really can't operate your business. It's unfortunately with the fires and COVID-19 right now, but hopefully everybody is safe and, a learning lesson for all. So just briefly, I mean, cybersecurity has three major pillars. Confidentiality, how can you keep your data confident and within access of whoever needs access to it. Integrity is where you would want to make sure the data you're accessing is what is needed. And then availability is that you can access the data when you want to. And that's a big factor in disaster recovery, is to kind of ensure availability. And this is just not data that is residing on your computers or on your servers. This is also data that is stored in the cloud, whether a third party or your private cloud. And basically, securing the data in the cloud itself is your responsibility. The vendor is usually responsible of the actual physical access. So availability is really not an IT problem, usually. Today, we're talking about a lot of DoD contracts, subcontractors, prime contractors, and so forth. So supply chain is extremely important into knowing where your data is, knowing how is it being handled. So having a risk management plan is extremely important. And understanding what is the third party, how are they handling your data. A simple example here is Alibaba Group is a private entity, and the Department of Defense is obviously a government entity that is responsible of safeguarding the nation. Looking at how these two entities handle their supply chain is very interesting to me. Alibaba Group is a Chinese company. They opened a data center here in Santa Clara, and we basically built all of their physical servers and so forth. When we were discussing kind of starting a relationship of maintaining their servers, one of their requirements was that every employee that enters the data center or touches their servers have to be a Chinese national or have to have a Chinese passport. It's quite interesting because that kind of gives you a little sense of loyalty to the country. And it's not right or wrong, but basically it's kind of, you know, having a smaller circle of who handles your data. And the Department of Defense, for example, has multiple foreign companies that are handling their infrastructure, that are working with their contractors. And there's really not a lot of oversight until recently, when there was an absolute evidence that Kaspersky, for example, had relationship with Russian intelligence. Kaspersky has been banned by the DoD completely and by any of their contractors. So that was just like a reaction to an absolute evidence that was found by private entities, and it wasn't really part of the DoD's evaluation. The reason I'm sharing this example is that look at the difference. I mean, what data is more sensitive, Alibaba's cloud or the Department of Defense? So that's something to kind of think about, is that the Department of Defense is doing a lot. They are actually, I've been in touch with certain people that are basically in charge of kind of replacing or educating the existing IT teams, that they would all be, you know, from cybersecurity backgrounds to help. So no shame. Okay, so these are examples of signature-based antiviruses. Who of you are using any of these known vendors? I mean, these are probably some of the top vendors of antivirus. Just in chat window, just say me or I, that'd be helpful. So if you look at these major vendors, all they're doing is looking at signatures of files. So, you know, hackers can technically just change the signature of a file and it will no longer be detected. Unfortunately, there's over 1 million signatures being created every single day. So it's a little tougher for antiviruses to keep up with that number. So it's really recommended to have, you know, next generation endpoint protection, especially with these days of COVID-19, everybody's sitting at home. It helps with a lot of the intrusion detection, intrusion prevention on a scale of all of your remote employees, instead of just having, you know, centralized protection within your network because everybody's working remotely. As mentioned, you know, Kaspersky was banned from the DoD. So if you have subcontract or prime contract with the Department of Defense, is no longer allowed. We spoke also last year about National Institute of Standards of Technology, but also within DoD contracts, you have signed the DFARS that you're required to have adequate security. The question mark of adequate security is people believing whatever they're doing is enough. However, there is a standard by, you know, NIST 800-171 that is required as part of the DFARS language. And that standard gives you, the guidelines of what you need to look at. And things you need to look in your system is, and why did I highlight Identify here is Identify is one of the 5 frameworks of the NIST. And identifying the risks and identifying a problem or a breach happening or is about to happen is extremely important. Basically, you have actors that are trying to target everybody randomly over the internet. So knowing that happened is important because hackers no longer want to let you know that you've been hacked. They really just want the data. So if you're not knowing, it means that the data will continue to be stolen and they can have more and more access. And don't think that you're too small or you don't have any classified information because, based on NIST 800-171, controlled unclassified information is important. And the reason why is they are unclassified information, but when they're gathered together, they can be classified. For example, there was a contractor that was using a fake version of Office that had kind of like a backdoor, and basically hackers were able to steal a ton amount of controlled unclassified information. It was one of the largest data breaches of the DoD, and that actually ended up considering classified and actually put a lot of our troops overseas at risk. For example, like the Edwin Snowden as well, and so forth. But knowing what you have and knowing your shadow IT, which is basically your employees that are buying stuff, everything's subscriptions now, everything's on the cloud. So it kind of makes it a lot easier to have data leave your presence without you knowing. And especially with the remote employees, as I said, intrusion detection prevention, intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention systems is extremely important. And since everybody is remote, a lot of people are remote, it's really important to have it on the host base or on the individual computers. And this is just an example of a Microsoft contract in Office 365. Basically, they can guarantee, they cannot guarantee that you can recover your data if it's lost, but at the same time, they provide security of the cloud, which is mostly physical. And you, as the tenant or the partner, is responsible for security in their cloud. And don't just assume that IT has taken care of it. These are stuff, as we said in the supply chain, you need to ask your IT vendors. We discussed the DFARS that are signed related to adequate cybersecurity. There's also some additions they're working on right now, the DoD is working on a pilot project called CMMC. It's a cybersecurity maturity model certification. So the DoD is trying to kind of lock down on your obligations of the DFARS, that people are usually just checking them just as a box. But instead of that you might be required to need certification. So it's something that you should be able to plan for. Once that happens, you'll be ready. But basically the security is there's several maturity levels, and they want to make sure that you are certified for certain lower ones. And they will be assessed and audited by a third party. This is just an example of a handbook that was published by NIST. You can see how simple it is. It's basically just looking at, a few questions on the left, and then, where to look is like, what are the policies that you need to look at, who to talk to, who are the employees, vendors, IT staff, whoever needs to talk to, and what tests you need to perform. So each section of the NIST standard is written in this handbook, so you can kind of checklist yourself. Example, that there's a consultancy company that was assisting small businesses in complying with this standard, and over 85, most of them believe that over 85% most of them believe that they're over 85% compliant of these standards. However, the reality showed that they were actually in the 30s. So it's really disappointing, but this is the reality. And it's not just a risk at the business losing their contracts. They're actually risking the safety of the nation. Here's just a little bit of a look down or a close-up for that same example of use of non-privileged accounts or roles when accessing non-security functions. And this is a really interesting example because I have seen this very, very commonly. And basically, when you have access to install a software on your computer, that means if a hacker took over your credentials or had a way to steal your session on your computer, they're able to install softwares as well. So if your duties on this computer is not to install softwares, then you don't need to have admin access or login with admin access. You can have separate login with an admin access, and that can be used for installing softwares. And just a simple example here is that there's a company, a shipping company I worked with, and they've always been having viruses and malware and stuff stolen here, computers damaged. Once they controlled their non-privileged access, basically they had their computers for years without trouble. That's just a simple example. We spoke about last year also, the risk is not just to your business or the DoD, the risk can be the internet as a whole. This hacker was able to paralyze the internet in Liberia. And why should you care? I mean, basically it's your devices that are being used to hack the internet. A simple example was also paralyzing part of the internet in 2016 in the US, and for over 3 hours. And that's something that you need to be concerned about because you could be responsible. And with all of these IoT devices like thermostats or fish tanks or baby cameras having default passwords, basically it's really easy to hack those devices and use them to attack the internet. Here's an example of advanced persistent threat, which is basically a hacking group that are basically attacking certain industries or certain companies. APT41 is just the kind of a naming to link their attacks on them. Were indicted finally by the Department of Defense, and basically they had a major shutdown on a lot of their activity due to taking over domains, websites, and servers that they have hacked. So they have hacked over 100 companies. They hacked governments all over the world, and they actually arrested 2 businessmen that are related to them as well just this month. So as I said, small businesses are still a target. 58% of all cyber attacks target small businesses in 2018. And the numbers can be big. Just example that they are not after the big money. I mean, these are camera systems for airports being sold, passwords being sold for $10. So why would you also care is because there are California laws that require you to announce a breach once it's discovered. The federal standard is 90 days, but California standard is immediately. So if you're not prepared, if you have not ran through identifying your risks or identifying a breach, then you could be violating the law without knowing. And basically, once you knew, you have to announce the breach immediately. And sometimes you don't really have enough time to investigate. There's also California Consumer Privacy Act that was released or in effect this year in January, and the Attorney General just finally finalized all the small areas. There's a lot of fines related to it, but also the privacy or identifying privacy or what is private and public is quite confined. It's really similar to GDPR in Europe. FCC also had regulations about text messages and phone calls, which in my opinion just made things worse, but just things that you need to prepare for and look at. Small businesses are still in effect. This was a 3-doctor office that was shut down in Michigan. Unfortunately, they lost all their data, so they lost all their patients' information, so they just decided to shut down. This is the age of mobile work. Companies like Facebook, and I should have been mentioning names, actually had a lot of they had a lot of policies against working from home. Now, large companies are actually encouraging working from home, and some of them are actually comparing salaries in California with the rest of the country. So basically, regardless of where you live, if you work remotely, you're gonna be looked at as, a national employee, a remote employee. So even if your living expenses is 5 times, another state, you're still gonna be paid, national wages. And that's the thing that pushed that. Basically, their concern is losing productivity with mobile workers, but they figured out after COVID-19 that's not the case, to an extent. But it's actually saving them a lot of money. So they're working with that, and it's actually the opposite. So managing these mobile devices is extremely important. Encrypting them also is extremely important, like Meijing was mentioning. Mobile phones can be lost, laptops can be lost. You got kids, you got visitors, you got just people are not in the office as often as they used to be. So having a host-based internet intrusion detection and intrusion prevention system is extremely important, because it used to be focused on the firewalls if they have something decent. But now, since a lot of people are remote, you need to have that on the device level. So antivirus is fine. A lot of companies still use them. They don't replace them completely, but it's really important to have a layer on top of that. A lot of devices have encryption. If they're lost, at least your data is not lost, COVID-19 had a big boom onto VPN connections. So it is a good thing. However, when? If everybody's VPNing into your office and log into your office network when they don't need to, they don't need access to certain files, they don't need access to certain systems, you're just putting your whole network at risk. Because instead of having one connection going to your office, now you have 10 employees, 100 employees, 1,000 remote, and basically you're just adding 100 more connections coming into your network. You're adding more layers of risk. So use VPN wisely. If you're using it to have a private network, like in public areas, then you can use it. You can use a VPN provider instead of logging into your network, because VPN can be from your network to access local files, or it can be with a reputable provider. And I underline twice reputable, because you don't want to just get these random free VPN services and basically you're just sending them all your data. Everything is going through their network, so it's something to look at. And that should be it for me. Thank you for your time and for listening and being patient, and we'll pass it back on to the team.
Yes, thank you so much, Adam, for this great presentation. Very interactive and a lot of examples, prime examples in regards to what's going on with COVID-19 and VPN. It's very true what you just shared. Sometimes it's, as business owners or business decision makers, is trying to find solutions, but then is it the right solution, right? So I think this is great when and this is the opportunity, of course, for business owners to that are joining in to please use the chat box feature, send in your questions, and then now I will I believe David will be introducing our third speaker, our third panelist. So David, welcome.
Hey, very good. Yes, oops. Can you hear me there?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Brian Horton is the CEO of Breadcrumb Cybersecurity. He's a Fresno native. Has been here working in Fresno locally for quite a while. He has spent his career supporting the technology goals of private sector and government agencies. As CEO of Breadcrumb Cybersecurity, Brian provides strategic oversight for emergency incident response, global cyber assessment services, penetration testing, and digital forensics crime lab. In addition, Brian frequently presents to educational institutions, research and policy centers, and local federal law enforcement groups on matters of cybersecurity and digital forensics test practices. Brian currently holds a variety of industry certifications and is very up to date on what's some of the techniques used by hackers, and will provide an insight into how to prevent that. With that, Brian?
Well, good morning, everybody. Nice to be here. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Looks like I need to be granted host real quick, Sandra.
Okay, let's.
No problem. All right.
Okay, let's try now.
Yep, got it there. All right, let me just do that. Wonderful. All right, so I thought it would be most helpful to perhaps, you know, most of the presenters here, or all of them so far, have shared on ways to prevent hackers, ways to stop them, kind of explain the consequences on a high level. But I thought it might be helpful to actually walk you through what happens when your company actually is hacked, is breached, how to respond to that, and what would be the most pragmatic steps to make sure that your company can get back up and going in a healthy fashion. So really quick here, my company, we are located here in California. Our sole focus is cyber. So we're not a help desk firm. We're not a support firm in that capacity. Our sole focus is cyber. Our work includes assessments, incident response work. For example, if your company has been breached, we would be one of the firms that you might call, or your insurance company might work with. We work with a wide variety of industries, so healthcare, education, small business, retail, point of sale, power and energy, healthcare. We have a heavy focus on training as well. We are also a guest instructor for the FBI Joint Cyber Terrorism Force here in the Valley. So we would do a lot of work on the cyber and forensic side. So kind of the agenda for the next 20 minutes here, I want to kind of lay out the threat landscape. I know we keep throwing around that term, the threat landscape, who are these people, but I kind of want to define why do they commit fraud, show some really practical examples. If you've never seen screenshots of the dark web, I'm going to show a few to you. If you've never been on the dark web, that's fine. Don't go on it. It's not a healthy place, but in our line of work, it's kind of what we do at times, is we have to go on there and conduct investigations. I also want to walk you through a case study of a small business here in the Valley that was breached. I won't name names. I want to walk you through what happened to their organization. Sometimes seeing how these hackers work might better inform you or us on how to stop it within our own companies. So we're going to kind of look at what went wrong, the impact on the organization and whatnot. And then I'm also going to show you from the perspective of the hacker what they were doing at the same time. And I think it'll be kind of a helpful example as you navigate what's important in your company on prevention. And then at the end, we're going to follow up with some best practices, and then we'll take Q&A. So the cyber landscape, right? So we've all heard this quote probably by now. This stat's actually a little old. This is from 2017, I believe. Cybercrime is expected to rise to $6 trillion annually by 2021. That's a staggering number. I think that's actually quite a bit higher now. But why do hackers do what they do, right? I mean, so why do they hack in? Why do they breach our data? It all comes down to the same thing. It's just money, right? So, you know, a personally identifiable record can garner anywhere from $150 to $355 per record. You times that, if there's a large enough entity that has 1,000 of those records, or 2,000 or 10,000, obviously, you can add up the math there. They want your data, right? And they want leverage. So maybe it's not you, but maybe it's a client of yours. That happens all the time, where like law firms, any type of like a financial firm, maybe they're not going specifically after those types of organizations, but they want all of their clients. And so here's some screenshots of the dark web. If you've never seen this before, it kind of looks like an eBay shopping cart or an Amazon shopping cart. This is literally a healthcare database with 210,000 patients that you can buy on the dark web. This data was stolen from an entity in the Midwest, and it was posted online. So these are the types of ways that if you're kind of wondering, well, how would they monetize my data? What's the point? They literally have Amazon-like networks out there where they just sell all of your data. Here's an investment bank data that was leaked, 400,000 entries of account holders. This is tax IDs, PayPal accounts, bank account numbers, loan information. You can rent this for a day and exploit it and victimize people. This is what hackers do. This is Experian, 203 million entries dumped online. And if you notice the value of this, you can buy this for $600. This is how hackers monetize your data. Blue Shield, Blue Cross, almost 400,000 patients out of Georgia were sold online. Yahoo dump. If you have a Yahoo password, sorry to tell you, if you haven't updated it in the past 18 months, it's out there. You can go online right now and buy 200 million Yahoo passwords for almost no cost at all. Staggering numbers. So this is how, so they either want to steal your data, to sell it, or they want to victimize you by wire frauds. But it all comes down to the same point. It's monetary. So a case study here. This is a case study on wire fraud. Like I said, we are often hired by organizations throughout the US that have been breached. So our goal is to walk in to help them understand what's happening, to contain the threat, to quantify the loss, and to make sure that the threat is outside of their organization. So I thought it would be really helpful for the audience today from a small business perspective to actually see step by step what happens when a company is hacked. This is a real example that happened. We helped this company in 2019. And they were a small company. I'd say they're a staff size of about 35, and they're located here in Central California. So here we go. A number one, the victim company accounting staff receives an email from a client asking why their invoice is showing as overdue, stating that they have already paid. It's about $350,000. So they're kind of confused. Why did I receive this invoice if I've already paid? The victim company calls back the client, indicating that the funds were never received and to confirm on their end. Some of you are probably shaking your head right now like, yeah, this sounds too familiar. So day number 6 now. So now we're into this for 6 days. The client forwards the ACH transfer documentation showing, yes, I've already paid this. I don't owe this money. A number 7, victim company reviews the documentation and informs the client that the ACH account number, the bank account number, is incorrect and requests the client to confirm on their end. Day number 9, so we're over a week now, the client forwards the victim company the full email chain from the victim company accounting department showing the invoice with the updated ACH information. Day number 9 again, the victim company reviews the email and determines that they never sent it. This is not their email, and that the ACH information is actually not their bank. Day number 9 again, the victim company IT department reviews the email and determines actually this was sent from us, and they concluded that the accounting department employee was just hacked, right? So they kind of leave it at that. The victim company IT department resets the password of the quote unquote hacked accounting employee and proceeded to resolve the issue with the client and their bank and their insurance company. They kind of think everything is fine. Day 35 now, so we're now 20 plus days past this. The victim company receives a call from another client with the exact same narrative. Payment was sent, but they're receiving an overdue notice. So the company now is like, what's going on? Another client that probably sent the money to the wrong bank account. Day 36, upon further review, another impersonated email. It came from the same accounting department employee, and it was sent 10 days prior. Day 37, victim company finally says, okay, we're not quite sure what's going on here. They contact us to help with the problem. Day 38, we arrive on site and we actually find malware on the hacked employee's work computer. So it wasn't just that their password was hacked. It's like there was actually malware on their computer and they were actively being monitored. Day 38 through 45, we actually find malware on 11 more computers within the organization. So all the victim company saw was the very tip of the iceberg. They kind of thought maybe it was a small problem. They tried to just update the password, but really under the water there was a pretty significant issue. So taking a step back, I think what's helpful is when we conducted our investigation, we have to go back to day -105 now. So 3 months prior, when we're evaluating all their computers, that's the first time that we detected that malware was installed on that employee's computer. So now, even though they were victimized on day one from what they understood, the threat was already in their network for 3 months and they had no idea. And it was stealing data, compromising passwords, taking bank account information. Day -90, so 90 days prior to when they were originally aware of this, is the earliest detection of credentials being stolen in the network. Day -89, earliest detection of malware being installed on other victim company computers. Day -85, earliest detection of the compromised IT admin username and password. So this threat was in there way in advance. This company was already compromised. They had no idea, and they would continue to have no idea if their customer had never even called them to start with. So what happened? Root cause. All of this came down to a malicious PDF document that somebody got in their email and they opened it up. This whole entire thing was caused by one document that somebody opened that they did not quite check the email closely enough on their end. They thought it was coming from somebody that they knew, and it wasn't. And their antivirus was inadequate, and they had lack of security training as a staff. The impact was obviously our fees, the confidence of the client, right? If you're that client, you're like, I'm not sure I want to do business with you anymore. This is kind of problematic. And the brand of that organization and the invoice, like who's going to pay that? Well, the client's already paid once. They're like, I'm not paying again. And the victim company's like, well, do they rebill? It's kind of this problem now. Is insurance going to pay? So you can see there's a pretty catastrophic domino effect with just 1 foot in the door with one document that one employee opened up, and it can lead to this entire cascading effect. I would say the majority of the forensic cases that we work on kind of start like this, where it's one document or it's one website or it's one click. And once that process starts, it's like the first spark. And then it grows pretty rapidly after that. Practical next steps, develop an incident response plan. If you're a really small company and may not be too quote unquote practical to develop a really long, lengthy document, but having something in writing where if you're breached, you know who to call, you know the number for the FBI, you know the number for your local help desk company, you know the number for an incident response firm like ours. You know, if your backups are stored off site, like, well, who's storing those? You know, all of those things could become rapidly important really quickly. And if it's stored on your network, and your network is breached or it's hit with a ransomware, you may not even have access to it. So having that document printed off, stored on a paper is really important. Having, like I said, a list of emergency contact numbers. And what we offer, it doesn't have to be us, but a firm like ours too, is having a company to come in and actually look at the plan and help validate it. So one of the services that we offer is we actually try and hack in ethically with your permission to see, does this plan work? Can we throw enough stuff up in the air and the fan to kind of create some confusion? And does your staff respond and your vendors respond how you think they will? So it's a really great validation tool. Second is carefully review your insurance policy for cyber coverage. This is a significant issue. I can't tell you how many times that we come in to an organization, small or large, where a pretty significant issue has happened and they could have swore that they had the right insurance coverage, but they never did. And carefully reviewing your insurance policies for cyber-related coverage is a very important step. And I would recommend having your IT firm help with that, because a lot of times insurance brokers, these types of insurance policies are so new, they may not even completely understand what's being covered and what's not. So having that area of the policy even looked at by somebody on your staff that's in technology to help validate it. Research your regulatory obligations, right? So if you're supposed to be NIST compliant, HIPAA compliant for healthcare, you're working with the government. If you're breached, there are certain things you have to do at a very specific time. Those things should be known in advance and actually put into your plan to where, hey, if I'm breached, I have to notify XYZ company within 60 days. I have to notify this other organization within a month. I have to notify the state of California within this certain time frame. Having those laid out in advance is a great idea. So you're not trying to understand all those things in real time. Review and validate your data backup strategy. Just like the insurance policy plan, I can't tell you how many times where we come into a victim organization, they've been hit with a ransomware, it's a significant issue, and they've been paying for this backup solution for 5 years, and they could have swore it worked, or somebody told them that it was going to work, but actually there's either no data being backed up or they can't recover the way that they thought they would. So just taking time to understand and actually asking very specific intentional questions of the vendor who's doing your backup. It's like, if I'm breached, how long will it take to restore all of my data? How long am I going to be down? How long can I recover back to? Make sure you clearly understand your recovery strategy and make sure that's part of your incident response plan as well. Because our position as a cyber firm is prevention is great. Nobody wants to get breached, but you have to prepare for the possibility of being breached. Sometimes we think, if a hacker is in our network, like we've lost, like the game's over. Well, the game is actually just starting. If you can find them, get them out of your network, follow your plan as quickly as possible. Like with my case study I had, they were in the network for 3 months and nobody knew that. If somebody found that out on week 3, they would probably still be fine. So it's kind of not accepting that as like we've lost. It's just like, okay, well, they're in our network now. Something has happened. Let's follow our incident response plan and make sure that is handled as quickly as possible. Consider hiring a firm to conduct a security posture assessment. So this would be a firm like ours or us to come in and say, hey, here's how we think you would stand up against a hacker if they were intentionally targeting your organization. And here are some key strengths and weaknesses that we've found and areas we think you need to improve on. Understanding those areas in advance could save you quite a bit of time and money. lastly, if you are a victim and you don't have an MSP, or you're not working with an IT firm already, or maybe if you are, if the breach is significant enough, get professional help as quickly as possible, because the way that these hackers hide in the network is extremely clever. They're prolific on their methods. They are really great at what they do. These are multinational organizations that hire hundreds of people, and their job all day is to steal your data. They are better at it than we can think of. If you spot a breach, chances are they've already been in there for a month. So you need a firm to come in and help quantify what's been lost, what's been stolen, or maybe help you gain confidence that nothing was stolen. Yeah, if you are a victim, that would be something we would recommend doing. And that is it. I wanted to keep it a tad bit shorter to leave room for questions and whatnot. So to recap again, our position as an organization is prevention is a must. All of the things that all of the rest of the presenters have already talked about is a must, but preparing for the inevitability at times, just depending on the type of organization you are, that you will experience a breach, you can still win. So having those plans in place, having those methodologies in place, you'll be steps ahead. So thank you for your time. I look forward to your questions. I think you're on mute.
Yes, I am. Thank you so much, Brian, for providing these vivid examples. And like you mentioned, what was astonishing to me was the fact that, a simple item that was downloaded, right, within the company, an employee within the company or the organization, it's one of those things where you have to be extremely careful. And of course, we all receive documents, different, throughout our working days, but being extra cautious and keeping an eye out there, right? And phishing emails, for example, sometimes you just read the subject line, the content within, but do you check what the email address is? Does it look suspicious? And how do you report that if you don't have an internal IT company? So really great presentation. And I don't see, I want to encourage our participants to ask their questions right now. I have here someone that sent in a question saying, what about using social media? So I'm assuming the question is, how can we protect ourselves with using social media, data breaches? I know that's one area.
So I assume the question is social media safe? Is that, you think that's the question?
Let's see. Okay, let's find out. Work systems.
So social media at work, maybe I'll just take it from there. I don't think we have a choice anymore. I think social media in the workplace is one and the same now. I think too many companies, brand and public relations and marketing plans depend on it too much to try and separate it. But it is good to note that social media is a very popular way that threats will try and breach into an organization. It's very easy to target individual staff unknowingly, either through LinkedIn or things like that, to get them to open up a link and such. It's also good to note that most corporate antivirus tools don't really integrate that well with social media. So choosing to allow staff to use social media while at work, there is an inherent risk to that. But I would say that just comes back down to staff training. I think basically everything that all three of the panelists here are presenting comes back down to staff training. They're your first line and your last line on stopping these kind of threats. So.
Brian, I'll follow up on that, on the staff training, staff security training. Who does that? And for a company, a small company of maybe 5 to 10 people, what is a sufficient amount of time to set aside to work with a company like yours to get this type of training?
I would say the amount of, probably a morning is our normal, our normal training session is 60 to 90 minutes. Anything more kind of, we try and keep it as pragmatic and actionable as possible, kind of the down and dirty facts on what staff need to be aware of, the really quick wins that'll help them throughout their workday. But I'd say about 60 to 90 minutes for a group of 15 and no more than 20, so per group.
And I also, so participants that are still connected on the webinar, you can actually ask your live question if you like. Everyone has the opportunity to unmute themselves using their chat box feature, so you can ask a question to Brian, Maijin, or Adam as well. So our experts are here. We have Silicon Valley experts and local Central Valley experts as well. So please submit in your questions.
Yes, I would like to also add a little bit about the social media side of risks. I mean, as Brian mentioned, it's extremely easy for a email to be fabricated that is not from the right source, whether it was hacking their own machines or their own servers or replicating the email in other ways. However, it's extremely more common for social media accounts because anybody can just open an account with your name, go friend your friends, go add connections to your connections, and then pretend that they're them. There's really no validation whatsoever. So it's a lot more common. I mean, obviously email is a huge problem, but social media is a lot more common. I mean, a lot more easier to do and very common. So, just something to be aware of, that there is no authenticity into emails.
Okay, this is David. I do have another question on just sharing private information. There's a lot of companies, whether they be construction, handiwork, whatever. What is the advice when they really press to get personal information from you? What is some of the guidelines that you would give to small businesses or individuals as to safeguard their private data?
So this is if the individual is being asked by other organizations for their data?
Correct.
I say push back. There's a lot of organizations that really want, I'm asked all the time, like my insurance broker's like, hey, can you send me XYZ over email? Or my CPA, I'm like, no, actually I can't. I can either encrypt it first, or I can mail it to you, or I can walk it over. But there are so many organizations that are breached. And the first thing that hackers try and search for once they're in your email are all of those keyword terms like password or bank loan or social security number, and they just steal all of that. So, I think there's nothing wrong with telling them, I prefer not to. They may not expect it, but if they're a victim, you're going to appreciate that you were maybe one of their only clients that didn't follow the rules. So.
Okay, how about on for example, on you're refinancing your mortgage and you have
I would say, there's going to come a point where even if you transmit it securely, you're kind of at the mercy of that organization and their best practices. So, aligning yourself with trusted brands is important. And then, that's why in my presentation, I'm like, even prevention is great, but you have to be prepared if something goes wrong, because there are times about Equifax. I mean, they were, a major international brand that lost over half of all of their consumer data. So even under the best of intentions, it can happen. but just having, I think, an awareness that it's possible that those things can happen, and a plan in place if they happen is the best you can do on hedging your bets against organizations that may not handle your data appropriately.
Can I add to that?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So and that is super scary because you know, we've gone through refinancing. We're working with mortgage company, and the staff email me saying, "Hey, can you send me this? Can you fill this out and send it to me on email?" It's like, no, I can't. I'm sorry. You know, don't send it as attachment, please, 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 and don't send any social security information on email. Don't send any password on email. Even like Brian said, even after I send them a link, a secure link to where my document is, I ask them, I call them and say, hey, okay, you know, do not forward this to anybody that are not supposed to receive it, only to the people that need to receive it. And I make that link expired after a certain time. But even after that, you're still at the mercy of, they could be downloading your document, put it in somewhere in your computer that's not protected, right? So it is, if you start thinking too far, you know, it's scary, right? You almost have to trust that they have a good practice in their office to protect your data, right? And I think we as business owners need to be responsible when we're holding other people's data, when we're holding our clients' data, when we're holding the government's data. We need to be responsible in protecting those.
Any other questions, Sandra, that you see?
Sandra, disculpa, ¿me puedes ayudar a traducir?
Claro que sí, sí, haga su pregunta.
Sí. Sí, nada más mi pregunta es, como qué links son los links seguros que pueden usar para mandar la información personal de manera protegida. Como qué tipo de herramienta podemos usar para que sea seguro.
Okay. So one of the questions here from one of our participants is, what are some of those secure platforms, links that can be shared within the client, between the client and the businesses to send over secure information, attachments, documents? So what would be some platforms that you would recommend?
Well, I think the first one that comes to mind is if you're a small business and you should be using paid email services, no more Gmail, no more Yahoo, no more, if you still have a Hotmail account, you know, that's been 20 years now, you kind of have to get rid of that. You know, so using like a service like Microsoft Office 365, which has encryption services built in, it's going to be a paid service. You know, maybe it's $10 to $15 per month, or maybe a little bit more per user, but protecting your privacy now has a cost. So if you're in business, I would say that's the number one pushback sometimes we get from small business owners, is they've been so used to the free services that work great, you know, that actually work really well, but they were never predicated on privacy and security. They were made just to work well and be convenient. And you have to kind of grow past that as a small business and start paying for those services that keep your data safe. And Microsoft Office 365 is one of them. There's more out there, but that's where I would start with. So.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Yeah, so also it's important to understand, your policies. So as both speakers were mentioning about, you know, links with an expiry, those are stuff that you need to have in your process. So there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of commercial services that do that. So just because you have a commercial email, it's going to be better. But if those documents don't need to lay around inside of the email, especially, you know, financial or personal information, it should be a good policy to, number one, have expirations on attachments, which is usually going to be a third party. And two, which is most important, is having a process to validate that your employees are not violating that policy. Yeah, thank you.
Sandra, is there any other questions that are showing up?
I don't see any more on my end. Looks like that is. As we are wrapping up here our presentation, I'll be sharing the contact information of our speakers for today, so you can connect with them, follow them on LinkedIn, find them on social media. But at the same time, I don't know, we can each go start with Adam, and then just one main takeaway for business owners, you know, something that they can start perhaps implementing right away, or meeting with their team to just revisit, right, the action plan of their security in their business.
Yeah, and also I'd like to follow up and thank the panel.
The two major things I would guess is number one, you know, ask the questions. You know, you deal with vendors, you need to understand how are they handling data. Basically, most important value for you is your data. So make sure you know where it's at, you know, what are your employees using? Ask the vendors what their policies are. They should have something publicly. If they're not, they can share it with you. And second is the handbook. I mean, the government has spent a lot of money funding through the National Institute of Standards of Technology. The handbooks I shared in my slides would be really helpful. It's plain English. It's not technical at all. So, you know, you can just ask the right people the right questions, and that should move you quite ahead. At least know where you're at is the first line that would help you prepare and plan for.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes.
Oh, sí, puede hacer su pregunta.
Sí, sí, ¿qué tan seguro es cuando yo pago con una tarjeta de crédito así por teléfono a una tienda o en línea como Amazon? ¿Sí recomiendan o no estaría bien? Como si yo hago una compra y hablo por teléfono, sí voy a dar mi número de tarjeta y todo, ¿eso no está bien o...?
Okay. So we have a question in between here with our takeaways. The question here from the participant is, how safe is it to use either a debit card or credit card when you're shopping online, when doing online shopping?
You want
Tough question. a lot of different, yeah.
It depends on the vendor. Make sure that if you are going to use your credit card, that on your phone you see that the website has the little lock on it. On the web browser, it has HTTPS with an S. You know, those are the immediate thing to look for before you start providing it. The third one would be whether these are reputable vendor or not. You know, there's a lot of vendors that are overseas, you know, Russia, China, other country that, you know, you don't know whether even with the lock and the HTTPS, whether you can trust your credit card with them or not. But just be very mindful and careful. Like I say, if you're using your app on your mobile phone to buy anything, or if you have an app that you put in your credit card and store it so that you can reuse it at the time, make sure that you always log out of those apps. Completely log out, not just close it.
Thank you so much. Okay, and Brian, any last minute remarks, one takeaway for our participants here?
Sure, I would say, you know, it can be very overwhelming at times to, if you've never gone through this process or hear these types of things or see these types of things on the dark web, you're like, I'm just a 20-person company or a 5-person company or a 1-person company. Where do I start? This seems very overwhelming. We recommend just start somewhere and start small. You don't have to tackle everything at one time. Even the really large companies don't tackle everything at one time. It's a process. So don't get discouraged by all of the, the facts out there, but just know them and be educated about them, and start somewhere and start small. So pick one of the things that you've heard today. I think if you pick many of them, it's fine. And just as fast as you can, maybe that's one a week, one a month, one every 3 months, just knock them out and get things done. But starting somewhere and starting small is my recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you to all three of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you all. We're at the end of our 90 minutes. It went by very, very quickly. And I really appreciate the speakers with the presenting some very eye-opening information of what's going on the internet and how we're very vulnerable. But more importantly, how we can stop this and follow up with timely information, and having your contact information for our clients and our members to call you and follow up. So thank you very much all, and I'll keep in touch.
Thank you. And you can check out a recording of this presentation that has been live streamed on our Facebook account. And also all participants that register will be receiving a copy of today's presentation. Have a good rest of your day.